Hello, everyone. So today we have Festive Tech Calendar, all about Power Apps. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone, to my talk here at Festive Tech Calendar 2021, and thank you so much for having me. This is really a great kind of learning tool, and for everyone having probably a bit of a calmer December than we anticipated. In Norway, we're locking down once again, and we'll have time for some learning this December. So this is really great. I really appreciate you having me on this show, I should say, learning platform. I will talk you through a solution that I created for attendee check-in. That's what I'm calling it. I'll go deeper into it in just a second. But before I do, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Festive Tech Calendar for having me on. If you want to see what else is on for the duration of December, go to festivetechcalendar.com and check it out. It's so much content the coming days, so just check that out. A little bit about myself first. I'm Norwegian. I'm not fluent in English, and I'm at my home office. I haven't talked to anyone so far today, so if my English is not up to scratch, then please I'll apologize for that. I work as a developer at a company called Skill, and I'm an expert in Power Platform and portals. So I'm an architect when it comes to Power Platform and portals as my specialty. So this fall, I was awarded Microsoft Business Application MVP. Very humbled and very honored to have that title. A little bit about my background. So I come from the Sharepoint world. I worked as a brander and information architect on SharePoint sites, intranets for 5 years out of school. And then I worked 5 years in the Dynamics department, working with portals. And now I'm starting on the development side using all my expertise from when I went to school into front-end development and portals. So that's really exciting. And for me, it's user experience that's what really drives me. That's my motivation to create the best user experience possible. And so on the right here, you see a picture of me. This is my family. So being a professional developer and an MEP, and then of course my family. That's probably that's my life basically. That's all I have time for. I do gardening and I do running as often as I can to clear my head. That's probably the most important thing. Besides my family, is my health. And then I do have time for some fun learning. For example, hackathons. So in Norway, we have this hackathon every February where consulting companies participate. Teams from each consultant company in Norway participate in creating a kick-ass solution using the Microsoft stack. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because this is actually the customer, if you will, for my solution. So I'm head of this committee that organizes this hackathon event every year, and we cannot afford marketing. So we would love to afford Dynamics 365 marketing. It's a great tool, a great application, but we simply cannot afford it. We're a nonprofit organization, so we needed to handle the registration and the check-in of our participants and the teams in this hackathon in a cheaper way. That's really what this was all about. So what we needed was a solution where we could publish something on our website and allow participants from all over Norway to register. We wanted them to get this an email saying, thank you for registering. Here's your QR code. This is the date and the time and the place you should meet up. And then when they came to that event, I wanted to be able to stand at the door with my mobile phone and just check in participants with a QR code. I was thinking Canvas app to use that to check in attendance. I'm really bad with faces and names, and it's so embarrassing. People I actually do know and I forget their names. It's so much easier for me to just pick up my phone and scan their QR code as an excuse for forgetting their name and then checking them in that way. So this is actually the solution that I wanted to show to you guys today. I created this solution, first of all, to use SharePoint list to store the participants. And then we wanted to use Microsoft Forms as the registration form. But then working in the portal space, I found that for me, it was much more natural to use Dataverse as storage for participants and then use the portal for the registration form. So I did a solution that works with both Dataverse as the storage or the data storage and the form, and also to work with SharePoint. Now, for those of you who don't want to pay an additional cost for the portal, for instance, or you don't have a Dataverse environment in your tenant, a SharePoint way would be the cheapest and the most accessible to everyone. So that's what I'm going to demo today. But what I did was I created this blog post series for you guys to use. It's tutorial-like, so you can start at the start and go through the SharePoint route, as I'm calling it. And it's a series of blog posts that will show you each and every step that I did to create this solution for SharePoint. Or if you're interested in the Dataverse with portals route, you can also look at those blog posts. Sorry, excuse me. You can have a look at the blog posts for that SharePoint or that Dataverse with portals route. So you can find these on my website, ulrike.akerbach.com, and you can walk through them. And if you have any questions, please just leave comments on the blog posts themselves or reach out to me via social media, and I'll help you as best I can. So today, this is what I'm going to demo for you, the SharePoint route. What does it look like? How does it all fit together? And what components do we need in order to make this happen? So let me just walk back to this sketch. So this is what I do when I sketch my solutions. I use my pen and I use my Surface Pro screen and I draw. So this is my solution actually. So on top here, you see that green square. That's the Microsoft Form. That's the free tool that you get with your Office 365 license. So Microsoft Forms is connected to a SharePoint list. And there's a Power Automate flow that and create SharePoint list items every time someone submits a form. So for those of you who don't know Microsoft Forms, every time someone registers or submits a form, it creates a row in an Excel sheet. But you can use form submission as a trigger for a Power Automate, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So I decided to create SharePoint list items for every submission. Now, first of all, I create the SharePoint list item, and then I create a QR code, and I'll show you this in just a second. And I attach that to the list item as an attachment. And then I send an email to the participant that submitted the form saying, thank you so much for registering to our event. This is your QR code. Show this to us at the door when we're at the event and we'll check you in. So far, so good. So the last component that I needed was a Canvas app that I can have on my phone on the day of the event. And I stand at the door and I wanted that app to scan the QR code and automatically check in that participant, editing the SharePoint list item. So that's the flow. And let me now just switch over to my browser and I'll show you this in real life. Now, just to say, we have comments enabled in this live stream. So if you want to ask me anything, you have any questions or comments, please feel free to just comment on the live stream and I'll get a pop-up on my screen and I'll address it as we go along. And I'll also have some time at the end. Thank you so much, Wesley. No matter what technology I use, my sketch never looked that good. Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much. All right, you guys. So this is the website of our hackathon. So it's pretty simple. It's just one-page HTML website. And we embedded a Microsoft Forms form here. So this form, as you can see, it's on our website. It's embedded here. And this is what it looks like from the inside or from the Forms site. So let me just zoom in a little. So if you're not familiar with Forms, log into your Office 365 account and use the waffle menu on the top left, and you'll probably see Forms here. So if anyone's familiar with Customer Voice, that used to be Forms Pro, that's the professional version of this tool. It has immensely more power to it, but they kept the easiest and most low-key functionality for free in Forms. So Forms, the little brother, and then Customer Voice is the same tool with much more power and much more cost to it. So I have a team, and I created my form within that team. And in the same team, I have a SharePoint list that I'll show you in just a second. So what I did was I created my header, put in the little logo here, added some fields. This is just simple text fields. Put in your name, put in your email address. The email address is, of course, required. Add your company, your team name, if you're a team leader, etc. down here. And then when you submit it, I'll show you in a second. I'll go in here and I'll say festive tech calendar. Just excuse me if I mistype anything. I'll send it to my own email address. I'll say and yes, we are aware that there is a rock band called AC/DC. We didn't mind at the time, but SEO, just let me say that we know about the rock band. I'll submit that, and it says, thank you for registering at Arctic Cloud Developer Challenge. We'll send you an email with the details about the event and talk soon. What happens is I have a flow here that's called Attendee QR code creation. And if I refresh here, we'll see it had a successful run 22 seconds ago. This is me. This is what I just submitted. The trigger up here is when a response is submitted. And then I need the form ID for my Microsoft form. I'll get that by just opening up my form in the forms, and I get the ID from the URL up here. It's really not that difficult to get. Then I have a for each that get that particular response. I can see all my outputs here and all my inputs. And then I go into the SharePoint item, the SharePoint list item, and I create, I copy or use the input from the participant, and I just simply copy it into the SharePoint list. I create a QR code, and I'll show you that in just a second. I add that QR code as an attachment, and then I send the QR code to the participant in an email. Let's look into this flow in more detail. Okay. When a response is submitted, that's the trigger. So that's the Microsoft Forms trigger that you need to select when you create a new flow. The form ID, you copy it from the URL, and then you use a for each. So that's the condition. When you add a new action, you have the controls and you have the for each control. So that's what I've used here. For each And then you select the list of responses from this form up here. This is a little counterintuitive. So you wanted to attach an action to every flow submission. But this needs to go attached to the form and then latch onto every submission for each submission. So this will create a list of responses, and for each element in that list, get response details. So the form ID, once again, this is where you get hold of all those input fields that we have here. So this is how I get that full name, that email, that company. This is the flow step for getting all that data. And then I go and I create an action for the SharePoint connector. I need to connect with my user to SharePoint, the SharePoint list. I need to specify what site the SharePoint list is on and what list it is. So I have multiple lists on my site, and I need to select the right list that I want to use. And then when I do that, this will automatically populate the columns that I have in my SharePoint list. And then I can go in and say, okay, so name in the SharePoint list will be full name from the form. Email in my SharePoint list will be the email option or the text field in my form. I leave the check-in time empty because that's what I want to fill in with the timestamp when I check in that participant. And then I have a SharePoint list item. I created that list item. Then I create a QR code using an action called Encodian. Now I haven't done so much research around. I just found this Encodian connector. There are so many connectors for Flow now. So if you just search for Encodian, this connector will show up, and you see that you have different actions. You can you can insert HTML to PDF, you can split PDF. There's so many things you can do. But what I did was I actually just search for QR code. And then you see you can create QR code here. So there are probably a lot of other services that you can use to create a QR code. This is a premium preview from Cloudversive Barcode. So there, if you have connected to another service, you're free to use that. But what I do know is that Encodian has a free trial for you to use if you want to just check this out. And you can just go to encodian.com, and there's a blog post showing you how to get an API key for Microsoft Power Automate. And this is actually very intuitive when you start using it. So what this allows me to do is create a QR code. And as you know, the QR code is that image that you scan with your phone. And you can choose what kind of data should be embedded into that image. So what I chose was the ID of that SharePoint list item. So that's why I created the item first in SharePoint, so that I can retrieve that ID of that item. And I'll show you that afterwards, why I need that ID, but put a pin in that. That ID of the SharePoint list item, that's what's embedded in the QR code. Now, usually we're used to that being a link. It opens up a website, for instance, or takes you to a video or something. But in this instance, it's not a link. It's not an HTTP call. It's an ID. It's just a number. So that will be invaluable to anyone other than me. And that's a security measure. And we'll talk about security at the end, but just put a pin in that. The embedded value of the QR code is simply an ID of the SharePoint list item. Then I do an update SharePoint list item action, where I simply just select the same list. I identify my row using the same ID, and then I attach that QR code image as an attachment to the SharePoint list. And as a final step, I send an email to the participant saying, thank you so much for registering. Hello, name, this is the date, this is the place, and this is why you should participate. And then if I show advanced, I attached the same file as an attachment in that email address or in that email. So when that email comes into the inbox of the participant, this is what it looks like. I'll zoom in for you here. You should probably have another send from address, as I'm using my system user, not really user-friendly, but still. The QR code is an attached image. It says, hello, Donatello. Welcome to ACDC. This is our website. And this is the QR code that you need to scan at the door. So far, so good. This is the SharePoint list. And this is the test that I did earlier this morning. And this is the submission that I just created. So if we open this festive tech calendar submission that I just did, we can see that it has the right name, the correct email address, the team that I added, no check-in time value. It has a QR code, and the QR code is here at the bottom as an attachment. And this is the code right here. Feel free to try to scan it, and you'll only get a number out of it. Right, so we've registered our participant. The participant has an email with the QR code, and we have that SharePoint list item, so we know how many people are coming to our event for tracking COVID information and everything. We would know who was there or who was registered to come, how many people would they be, etc. Now comes the time, the day of the event, and I need to check in the participants that come to my event. And so if I can just unlock my phone, let me just see where the camera is. This is really not 2021 material, but still. So this is my Power App, actually. This is what it looks like, my Canvas app. And it allows me to scan QR codes by clicking that scan button down at the bottom. It opens up my camera. I can look at this image right here. And the demo ghost is making me nut. And it wonders, no, it's working on it. And then you'll suddenly see festive tech calendar is checked in at the top. Yeah, so you can see that success message at the top saying festive tech calendar is successfully checked in. Now let's go into the SharePoint list and see if that's actually true. I have a small little refresh here. And yes, I can see check-in time just a few seconds ago. And checked in is ticked off. So if I now open this up, I'll see that check-in time has been edited. And so again, from the pandemic, we know we need to track who's at the event, for instance. This would be a good way to automatically check in the people and know who is actually there. And of course, you can connect flows to this, that whenever someone is checked in, and you can have a timer, say, let it be 1 day from the event, or maybe 3 days, and you can send another email saying, thank you so much for attending. This is the link to the presentation that we had, or this is contact information from us. And then from those who did not attend, that don't have this check-in time, for instance, you can send a sorry you missed that email saying how to get in touch with you if they want any more information, for instance. But this is kind of magic, isn't it? That Canvas app. I'm pretty proud of the branding, I must say. It doesn't really look like a Canvas app. And this is probably the most advanced and the most easy part of the whole solution, I must say. So this is just a simple Canvas app with a start screen. I also included or let that browse screen still be here. So if you are on the start, you can click this button here and it'll take you to the browse screen. That will allow you to open that participant and check it in manually. So for some reason you are at the event and you stand here at the start screen and that scanner doesn't work, you can always go to the list and select that participant and check that participant in. So that's a nice backup to have. But of course, I want this barcode scanner to work. And this is exactly what I did when I showed you on the screen. This is simply this is out of the box. You get this barcode scanner in Canvas app. So I just added this barcode scanner. I made it look like a button. And then on the barcode scanner, if I select the scanner in my app here, and I go to the property on scan, this is the magic. When I click this button, the barcode scanner opens up my camera and it scans the code and it saves that value in barcode scanner.value. What I do with it, that would be the ID of the SharePoint list item, right? Like we talked about earlier. I get that ID and then I run a Power App flow, automatic flow. And I send that ID to the flow. And then I wait for a response. That would be the text that is shown here. Success, someone is checked in. So let's look at that flow. So if you want to add, so first of all, you add from the insert and the media, and you add the barcode scanner. And then you go to the on scan value. And then you can use action and Power Automate. This will allow you to create a new flow from here and send variables to it. I've already done that. So I can go here and I can go edit. This will open up my flow. And this would automatically be connected to my Canvas app. So when I ask in the flow, I can create different parameters. So I can send values to the flow. And as I said, I can also select the response. So this flow has the Power Apps trigger. It's triggered whenever that flow action is triggered. And it has simply one job to do. Update the SharePoint list item, taking that ID that we send through as a variable, update checked in to yes, and then set check-in time to an expression called UTC now. That's the timestamp now. And that's it. Then I respond to my Power App, Canvas app. I select an output called check-in response, success, and name of the SharePoint list item participant, and checked in. And then I terminate with succeeded. And that's what happens. So when I showed you, I'm scanning the QR code, and it says success, festive tech calendar checked in. That's the response that comes from this flow. And so the barcode scanner value is the ID of the row. It sends it to the Power Automate, updating the SharePoint list, and responds with that name. All that the response is now put into a variable, a Canvas app variable called flow response. And I simply display that variable, that flow response. And that's basically it. So we can also see here, if we go to this flow, I can go into this one. And we can see how many times that has run. It ran 6 minutes ago. This is when I checked in that festive tech element. You can see the schema, the JSON schema, and the ID of the item was 23. It goes into the SharePoint list and fetches that row with ID 23. It sets the value, and then it responds with success, festive tech calendar checked in. and then it terminates. Pretty easy, right? Let me go into my presentation. All right, so this is what we looked at. We looked at storing participants in SharePoint, registering participants with forms, and then the Canvas app for scanning the QR code. Any questions so far? All right. So this is kind of me closing up. So considerations. There are some things to consider when you're setting up the solution. So first of all, security. So this solution is made as a demo, as a proof of concept. If I were to use this in production, which we are, the hackathon is in February, so we're using this. What I would consider using that ID, that number, as a value for the QR code. That's one security measure, because anyone could scan that QR code and wouldn't yield any other result than an ID, a number, and that wouldn't give them access to anything unless they have access to the SharePoint list. So that's kind of a security measure in and of itself. You need to make sure that there's one system user that has access to the SharePoint list, that has access to the flow and the Canvas app. And you need to enable a run user for the Power Automate flow for that user. And of course, also for the Canvas app. You need to enable anonymous access to the form. You can default is that the form is for users inside your organization, where you need to enable the anonymous access. And that is also why you cannot have that automatic. So if you would have a Microsoft form within your organization, you could have that automatic email, send an email when on submission from a setup from the form. But because it's anonymous, you don't have that option. And so that's why we need that flow to do that for us. Think about licensing. The Microsoft Form is a free tool. It comes with your E1, E3, or E5 license, your Office 365 license, as do SharePoint and with the Teams license. You need the Power Automate per user license, and as well the Power Apps license, the per user or per apps license for Power Apps. And of course, you need SharePoint or a SharePoint list. If you were to use Dataverse and Power Apps portals, you would have to have an anonymous form on portals, making it available for anyone outside of login. And you would have to pay license for unlogged in, not logged in users for that. And of course, you would need the Dataverse and an environment or a solution with your form on it. Extensibility. As I said, you could use Power Apps portals forms for registering. This would work well with other apps that you might have, or any customer portal or any other portal. I would recommend using this if you already have a portal on your tenant or in your environment. And Dataverse for storing registrations makes sense if you already have your contacts and your accounts in that environment. So if you have anything in Dataverse from before, I would totally go that way or that route instead of using SharePoint. So what if you had multiple events and you wanted to use this for multiple events, maybe one each day or all through the year? Well, you could simply use the same setup, and you could just change the list that this solution goes to. So when we have that flow, that register, that participation or that submission, you would simply just choose another SharePoint list to store the participations. The same goes for the flow, that check-in and create that QR code. Simply select another SharePoint list if you have different lists for different events. or you could have a kind of a drop down on your registration form that says which event are you participating in, or maybe a hidden field somewhere saying what event is this for, and then in the Power Automate kind of detect what event this registration is for and simply select the correct SharePoint list or the correct Dataverse registration list, depending on what event this is for. Also think about maybe having some kind of expire date for the QR code check-in. So it's already secure because the ID doesn't make sense to anyone that don't have access to the SharePoint list. But still, if you need additional security on top of that, maybe have a QR code expire date on the list item or in the Canvas app, checking that date versus today's date, and make sure you're within that time frame of the event, for instance. You should absolutely validate the values that come into Power Automate. So to make sure that no one is putting in harmful data in your form, trying to send some scripts in or whatever, have some validation on the forms and the input fields there, and make sure that that email address is legitimate. And then, of course, handle error responses. So my Power Automate flows are very simple and easy to look at and go through, and that's the point of this exercise. But if you wanted to use this in production, please make sure you have some error checks and some conditions along the way in your Power Automate to handle errors. So, for instance, validate what the email address, what kind of format that is, to make sure that it's a legit email address, etc. And how would you handle rapid check-ins? So if you're at an event and there's a queue at the door and you maybe have 2 people trying to check in people and it's chaos, this app that I created is optimized for that. So you would click the button, you would scan the code, it would give you that success message, you would hit a button again, check the next one. Maybe you would have some auto refresh that actually triggers that barcode scanner after a second of showing the success message. There's a lot of things you can do to speed up the process. And you could also, this is real time, so this will trigger that flow that will update that SharePoint list automatically, and it needs to be connected to internet. But you could do this offline as well. So instead of having a flow checking in and doing this real time, you could simply have a collection within your app, within your Canvas app, that creates a log of every code that's scanned, every ID that it got. And then when you get back to your office or within reach of Wi-Fi, you could create a flow that would check in those who are on that log list. So if it's not really important to validate each and every participant at the door, I would probably choose to collect those IDs offline and then check in those afterwards. It would be faster and it would work offline as well. Now, I think this is pretty fun for us because this is actually a scenario that we have one of our customer. We created the solution with a custom web app for a customer 5 years ago, where they have multiple events and you get to the venue and you have your code and you scan it and you get that little label from a printer. You attach it to your jacket and then you go into the event. Now, after I've done this presentation a couple of times before, and they actually want us to create that solution again, the same solution that they already have and paid for. They want us to build that solution again using this approach. And that's because of the extensibility. So you can extend this so many ways because of Power Automate. It's such a powerful tool. It integrates with almost anything, and it's over 350 connectors now that you can use and utilize, and it makes it such a powerful tool that they're actually willing to pay for this yet another once again. So that's pretty fun for us, I think. And if you're interested in creating this in your own environment, please feel free to go into my website and follow those blog posts that I created. It's pretty much step by step. Click here, do this, do that, and a lot of screenshots. So it should take you through it pretty neatly. This is my last slide, guys. This is probably just information on where you can find me. I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter, and please send me an email or a comment on the blog post if there is anything that you need help with or are wondering about. I'm here to help. Scan the QR code with a little dinosaur if you want to get to my website. And then I'm also appearing, also having a session on Scottish Summit in February, if you're interested. That's on portal templates and what the different templates are in portals. And then I'm also having a portal lunch for those of you who are Norwegian and like portals or work with portals. We have a community call every quarter, and the next one is February 16th, 2022. And you can find us by searching for Portal Lunch February 2022 on Google, and it's the first response that you get. And that's what I had. So thank you so much for your time and for attending. And if there's any questions, I'm here to help. So please feel free.
That was awesome. I can definitely see all these user groups in the UK and around the world, which are going to start up back in person again, maybe wanting to adopt this for the COVID reasons, definitely good. And then the idea you had as well of being able to send follow-up emails afterwards to say, oh, don't forget, we've got a new one coming up this time, so don't forget to register for it. So definitely, I like the look of that. When I start my user group up again, I think I'm going to steal this and use it.
Yeah. You're awesome. So welcome. And then it's much cheaper than the marketing app for sure. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so easy the way you made that look. Yeah, I can't wait to follow along.
Yeah. I hope you do. And if you have any trouble, just ask, and I'm here to help.
Perfect.
Great.
So I think there isn't any questions here, but they know where to reach you if they do when they follow along, which I'm sure I will be doing. So thank you very much for being part of the Festive Tech Calendar.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And
have a lovely December.
Hopefully I'll see you in Scotland in February.
Yes. I hope we can actually go there.
Fingers crossed.
Yes,
awesome.
Fingers crossed.
All right. So thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.